Hello and welcome to my devotional for today. I wasn't able to get on yesterday, and that's the way it goes sometimes, but here I am today. So, welcome. Hope you're having a good day wherever you are. We're starting chapter 8 of Proverbs today, and this is a really important chapter in the book of Proverbs. Now, we've been working through it one verse at a time. We've gone through 7 chapters, so we've been doing this for a while now, and we're going to do that, keep going doing that. But chapter 8 has a really important role to play in the book of Proverbs. As all scripture is important, but some just has this kind of pivotal role. And chapter 8 is really important in what it's communicating as a whole. So in this introductory verse, I'm going to draw on that. If you've been following these devotionals along, you'll know that in each chapter there's different themes and things that sort of come through in parts of the chapter. But this chapter is making a large theme throughout the whole chapter. But let's read verse 1 right now. We'll read that, and then I'll lead us into that theme. So it says, verse 1 of chapter 8 says, "Does not wisdom call, and understanding lift up her voice?" So there's a rhetorical question there. Of course, it's the intended answer is, of course she does. So it's a rhetorical question, but it's a question that's being asked. Does not wisdom call, and understanding lift up her voice? And the idea here is wisdom is calling you, right? There is a draw within you, within humans, a draw to wisdom. And so that's kind of the point of the verse, very simply put, is that there is a natural draw toward wisdom. But now we have to understand what we mean by wisdom. And chapter 8 is doing this. It's helping us understand what wisdom is by personifying wisdom and making wisdom this woman that's calling us. And by using the imagery of this personification of wisdom, it's explaining. The chapter is actually explaining to us what wisdom is all about. So it starts with this whole idea. It starts with this rhetorical question of there's a draw in humanity toward wisdom. Human beings are designed by God to improve. We're not designed to be complete at birth. We grow, right? We start small and we grow. And so we start as a little baby, we grow into an adult. We start without any knowledge and we grow in knowledge. We start without any strength and we grow in strength, and so on and so forth. So humans were designed to be an improving being, that we start small and grow, become stronger. And so I'm not talking about evolution, that the human species is evolving in some scientific way that these theories will say. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the tendency of humanity as a whole, yes, to improve, but individually, specifically for a human being to also improve as we grow. And it's not by some random force of nature alone that we're talking about, but it's by divine mandate. In the creation story in Genesis chapter 1, God creates humans and he gives humans a mandate. And he says, be fruitful and multiply. So there's this idea, have more humans, right? Now that doesn't mean every individual human has to become a parent, but it's a mandate to all of humanity. But it shows the intention of the creation of humans. What God had is there should be a reproduction idea, like let's grow in number. But then it says to grow over the earth and subdue it, that we should rule over the earth and subdue it, that humans were designed and mandated by God to become the dominant force on the planet, that we were to cultivate the garden of the world, to be caretakers of the creation he made. And so there's a divine mandate there to improve, to grow, and then through our growth to improve the world itself. And that is what humans are supposed to do as a species. But then even individually, I would say that each of us has a part in that, and that the example of humanity growing in strength and supposed to be, now we have a sinful world, but if it hadn't been sinful, if we had done it right, in the same way humanity would grow and slowly cultivate and rule the world in a positive way and improve it, so too individuals have a part in our own little micro world of how we're born, or as it were, created, right? Born small, but we grow, and the world we learn to multiply ourselves in a sense, and to subdue and rule the sphere of influence we have, and to grow and to provide good outcomes from our involvement and our growing strength. But the clear mandate is a divine one. It's not merely an act of physics, right, or biology. But increasingly, our world is just treating humans as if they are merely biological machines in a physical world, and so we're treating it all wrong. We're just there's sort of this idea of whatever you can do, do it. If it works for you, go ahead. But the biblical call to wisdom is different. It's personal. It's anthropomorphized in chapter 8 here, but it's personal and it's divine in nature. It's a divine mandate to grow and become better. We are meant to do this growth under the divine mandate. In other words, under God, not just simply as a consequence of being a physical being that grows, but rather under God. And so we're called to not just simply grow in strength, but to grow in wisdom. And so this is really important. Wisdom without God, or growing in strength without God, is wisdom is to grow is not wisdom at all. It's just growing in strength. Wisdom without God is not wisdom. It's just strength. But as we grow in strength, if we grow in true wisdom, that's under God. God leads us in it. Another way to look at it is this: wisdom is kind of another way of saying maturity, right? To mature, to become what God intended us to be. Maturity is not simply a physical thing. If we look at human beings and we say, oh, that person has reached puberty, they are now physically mature, and that's all there is to maturity, is the growth of strength, then we miss the boat completely on this. But we would expect any human being that grows in physical maturity to also grow in emotional and mental, spiritual maturity, that there would accompany that aging process, not just a growth in physical ability, but a growth in mental and social and so on, in the spiritual, the unphysical part of humanity, to grow to maturity in that as well. That's wisdom. And so it's really important. We define this as a moral code. There's got to be a moral code. So what I've been saying, the first 7 chapters of Proverbs have often come back to saying wisdom is not merely about knowing how to do things efficiently, or how to do things in order to ensure some sort of positive outcome. That's not what wisdom is by itself. That part of wisdom, but that part of wisdom is just simply the increase of strength, the increase of ability to accomplish tasks, to accomplish things. But wisdom is moral. It includes a moral code. And this is what chapter 8 is really saying. If you read the chapter as a whole, and I would encourage you to do this, read the whole of chapter 8 in one sitting, just read it. You'll see that there's a message there about the moral side of, or the moralness of what it means to grow in wisdom. It's not merely an increase in strength. If it's just an increase of strength or ability, then that's corruption, right? As we see power increase without a moral guiding code behind that power, then power becomes corruption. And humans, we're good at that. We're good at growing in strength without wisdom, and thus we have all kinds of corrupt empires and forces around the world for the entire history of the human being. That's not good. And so we need to grow in wisdom. And so this verse is starting out the whole chapter by saying, isn't it obvious? Isn't it obvious that we are meant to be wise? Or in other words, as the chapter goes on to explain, that we are meant to be godly, that we are meant to be like God in moral order. Before God even made a physical thing, wisdom existed. And aren't we supposed to be like that? That's how this chapter is starting out, with a kind of the rhetorical, it should happen. Because if it doesn't happen that way, then the previous chapters, as they talk about the fool who goes down the paths of the adulteress, or the paths of the sinful, it's just destruction. It just leads to destruction and corruption. So we must respond to wisdom's call. We have to in our life say, I'm going to pursue wisdom. And so chapter 8 tells you not only should you do it, but understand that means supporting, or pursuing rather. That means pursuing righteousness, the moral code of God, not just the moral code of your own self or some other person. The moral code of the universe is not subjective to humans. It is objective to humans. It's outside of humanity. It's a code that we can all attain to, and it's rested in God's character and nature. As I said, read the whole chapter, and you'll see that message is right there. how the chapter just describes how God had wisdom before he created the world, and that wisdom was what he used in creating. It became the foundation of the world, the moral character of God. And so we as humans, if you want to be truly wise, you have to understand you cannot separate the pursuit of righteousness from wisdom. It doesn't work. It's like telling somebody that they can be mature simply by going through puberty. But we hopefully wouldn't think that way. We would realize every young man that grows up and becomes a man has a moral obligation to live a certain way. And we call that wisdom. Biblically, we call that wisdom. And that's the point here in chapter 8, the whole chapter. And verse 1 sets the stage by saying to us, isn't it obvious? Isn't it just built right into you? There's a sense of right and wrong. There's a sense of good and bad. There's a sense of good choices, bad choices. Isn't there a call in all humanity to be guided and ruled by wisdom? I would say so. Anyways, God bless. Lord willing, we'll go to chapter 8, verse 2 tomorrow, and we'll see you then. Take care.